God bless the Irish. Without them, I wouldn't have been alive to write this book. From the O'Brennans to the Kellys, to the McNamaras, the Finnegans, the Flanagans, I spent another 10 years singing. Between Seven Springs in western Pennsylvania to eastern Pennsylvania to Baltimore, Ocean City, Maryland, I kept going and didn't even want to sing anymore. People literally forced me to sing. I finally moved Dave's old trailer to a campground near Bally and Pottstown, Bechtelsville, Pennsylvania, 10 miles south of the Bally Hotel and 15 miles north of the Country Tavern. One day Chuck said, "Mountain John, come on. I'm taking you to a town called New Hope, Pennsylvania, to see a bar called John and Peter's. I think you'll love it." I said, "Chuck, I don't want to start traveling 1,000 miles a week again." He said, "Shut up and get in." I did, and we took off. Chuck Childers was and is a dear friend. He once paid me $500 to play one night at the Country Tavern, plus he paid for radio advertisement and the local FM station in Philadelphia to send their best radio DJ to come to Pottstown to MC my show. 20 people showed up, and he made me take my pay anyway. He and his wife Susie and the two boys, Nate and Dylan, have taken me in 1,000,000 times, driven thousands of miles to hear me sing. Once they drove me to a hospital when I thought I was having a heart attack, and then brought me back to their house and nursed me back to health. It wasn't a heart attack. It was a heat stroke brought on by a disease called Meniere's disease. Damage to the inner ear. Thank you, JBL. They also paid for my last divorce. I suppose they would do anything for me, and I would for them also. Jim Finnegan, a man who has believed in my talent and gift from drunken fits of fury to diabetes, gout, high cholesterol, and Meniere's disease, inner ear. He is the most classic Irish drinker I have just about ever known, but I know I've said the same about Flanagan, O'Brennan, Kelly, and McNamara. Jim kept me booked for 15 years or so. Pat Flanagan, a big, bizarre Irishman from inner city Baltimore with a bunch of sisters that were all called Mary. You've got Mary Elizabeth, Mary Catherine, Mary Margaret, Mary Agnes, and no doubt 4 or 5 more Marys. I think Pat was the only boy, and that right there is enough to cause terrible bouts of Irish drinking, so he would remember their names. Then there was Billy Boyce, Debbie's stepfather, my mentor, Sandy's husband, and one of the dearest friends that has kept me going financially and emotionally for years. He's paid for 2 albums and a bankruptcy and gallons of hard liquor and cartons of cigarettes and every meal we ever went out to eat. Chuck Childers put me in his truck one day and drove me to this town called New Hope, Pennsylvania. He wanted me to see a bar called John and Peter's. We went. It took us forever to get there. The roads on the east side of Pennsylvania have so much traffic that you have to leave 2 days ahead of time to go 40 miles away. We finally got there, and New Hope was a quaint little artist colony nestled on the banks of the Delaware River. It is also one of the major beginnings of American Revolution history and the center of civilization of the United Colonies. The first European white folks wound up settling that river area in the 1600s. New Hope, Pennsylvania is and has been a melting pot of artists, dancers, actors, musicians, restaurants, bars, and theaters for years. In the 60s, it was invaded by hippies because of its beauty and charm and also because of its loose sexual and moral free-living attitude. But the mid-80s, however, by the mid-80s, it was 75% gay and politically incorrect in every manner imaginable to the free world. John and Peter's Bar sits smack dab in the middle of everything. A small building that is more of a home to me than anything else now, and has been for the last 15 or 16 years of my life. Chuck and I walked in the front door in the small bar area, had about 20 seats. Handmade stained glass lamps hang from the ceiling everywhere, and the ceilings are very low. From the bar top to the tables to the walls, everything is hand-finished wood. Not pretty, but 60s funky. If you go through the tiny bar area, you will come to 4 steps leading down into one of the most perfect music areas ever built. 70 seats, and every one can see the stage perfectly. The stage takes up half the room, and the seats are all around it, from one side to the other. The back of the stage is brick. It is the most intimate entertainment room I have ever sung in. I fell in love with it immediately. The room and the energy of the room begged me to play there. Since leaving Nashville, I had not wanted to sing, but now I did. In 32 years now on the road, I have never felt at home except on John and Peter's stage. Chuck and I saw a man seated at a booth with papers and mail all around him, and he said, "May I help you?" Chuck said, "Yes, I'm Chuck Childers, and this is Mountain John, and I own a bar in Pottstown, and Mountain John entertains there, and I told him he needed to play here also." The gentleman looked at me and smiled and said, "I'm John Larson, one of the owners. Peter isn't here right now, but sit down and I'll talk to you." This man was one of the nicest people and had one of the kindest faces I had ever met. He said, "Let me tell you about our club."